In this devotional, I'm going to share with you 3 thoughts from 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 15 through 19, where I'll answer the question, why should I seek godly counsel? Second Chronicles chapter 24, verses 15 through 19 says, But Jehoiada grew old and full of days and died. He was 130 years old at his death, and they buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel and towards God and his house. Now after the death of Jehoiada, the princes of Judah came and paid homage to the king. Then the king listened to them, and they abandoned the house of the Lord and the God of their fathers, and served the Asherim and the idols. And wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this guilt of theirs. Yet he sent prophets among them to bring them back to the Lord. These testified against them, but they would not pay attention. Joash is one of these kings that reforms Judah for a time. And the reason we find that he is doing these reforms is because there is a godly high priest who is encouraging him to rebuild and restore the temple after years of neglect and abuse. Joash listens for a time, but once that high priest, Jehoiada, is gone, then he starts to listen to the princes of Judah. And the princes of Judah are not leading him or guiding him or counseling him in the faithful service of God. Rather, they lead him astray. In this section of Scripture, we see that it's vitally important for us as believers to seek out godly counsel rather than worldly counsel, because the results have impact far greater than we might see. Here are 3 thoughts on why I should seek godly counsel from 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 15 through 19. Thought number 1, Jehoiada was faithful, and his faithfulness is so great that when he finally does die, at 130 years old, he is buried among the kings of Judah. He is given this place of such prominence, of such significance, of such honor, because he was faithful to the Lord and continuously so. This is precisely the type of person that we ought to seek out for counsel and guidance. We should seek out those who are faithful to the Lord, who are willing to call us when we are violating God's purposes, who are willing to challenge us regardless of power concerns or authority concerns that might exist. We need to have faithful, godly people in our life to counsel us in the ways of God, so that way we would avoid worldly direction. Thought number 2, Judah's princes were vile. In stark contrast to Jehoiada were the princes of Judah. Because after Jehoiada dies, the princes of Judah come up and they surround Joash and they begin to give him their counsel, and their counsel was very different from that of the good high priest. Where Jehoiada was encouraging Joash to restore the temple, to bring the people of Judah back into faithful service to the Lord, the princes of Judah encouraged Joash to return to the Asherim, to worship idols, to go after these other gods that were a constant problem for the people of Israel, a constant temptation, luring them away from faithful service to the Lord. Thought number 3, Joash was led astray. Joash being led astray is a lesson for all of us to follow. When he was receiving good counsel, he was doing good things, and the nation of Judah was blessed. But when he began receiving bad counsel, he led the people of Judah into idolatrous worship and away from the Lord. Joash was led astray, and when he was led astray, what he ended up doing was leading other people astray to the detriment of the entire nation. We must recognize that with godly counsel, our impact on the world is better. We have a godly impact on the world. Because of this, we must seek godly counsel and recognize who it is that we ought to listen to and who it is that we ought to dismiss. These three thoughts come from the assigned reading, 2 Chronicles chapters 21 through 24. If you'd like to read through the Bible with me, you can do so by joining the Facebook group Through the Bible, where we are reading the text of Scripture together.